Welcome back to The Big Show. It's Alex Belfield talking to my favourite people, and trust me, Gloria Hunniford is one of them. How are you?
I hope you don't say that to all the girls.
Well, no, only the ones I like. But I'm quite picky and choosy, you see. I don't have all riff-raff on.
And I think you like just a slightly older woman, don't you?
Well, I do. And one that's got something to say and will answer a question.
And I've got loads of experience as well, so there you go. You're on a win-win.
I'll tell you what's great about you, and take this as the compliment it's intended, but you've been around the houses, you know the business inside out, and you're not one of those new celebs that won't say anything, won't do anything. You'll actually answer a question. That's why I like having you on.
And you know something, the older I get, I think the more straightforward I'm getting on answering the questions. Is terrible. I sometimes go on Alan Titchmarsh's programme, and you know how as a broadcaster you learn over the years that you have to keep on the fence a bit, you know, when you're doing interviews. But it's marvellous when you go on a programme like Alan's because you're being asked your opinion about certain subjects. And sometimes I come off and think, I can't believe I just said that.
You do a great job of it, and I occasionally see you from time to time on The Loose Women and people like that. And then the 3 o'clock show thing you did most recently. I had Fiona Phillips on the other week, and I asked her the same question I'm going to ask you. Was that as uncomfortable being in it as it was watching it?
Well, I hope it wasn't that uncomfortable. In actual fact, you know something? I was speaking to somebody about that this morning. I think that the time is absolutely ripe for that kind of debate programme. I love Loose Women, but Loose Women, it tends to be fluffy. And I think to do serious topics, particularly at the moment with all the stuff that's in the news, I think it's absolutely right and proper. That's what we should be doing. So it's a shame if you felt uncomfortable, but it's marvellous, I think, just to be able to have a good old,
let me tell you
row. Why?
It's that Kelvin Mackenzie. You just want to give him a slap.
I know, but all makes good telly, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but then he overtalks you, and I think, let her speak, for the love of God. You know what I mean?
I'll kick him the next time.
Is that coming back then?
Well, we do hope it did. It really did very well in the ratings. And on top of that, it was in August when a lot of people are away, but the ratings were really good. So fingers crossed. I would love it to come back because I just think it's great to have that kind of debate. And people love it, They love getting involved in current debates. And there's so much in the news at the moment that people want to have their say on, whether it's family allowance or the banks or, pensions, whatever it is. People love to get involved. So I hope it does come back.
Do you know what I love about you? You're like one of those American female stars, like the Diane Sawyers, the proper journalists who keep going and going and going. And you're a slap in the face to all those people who say, oh, women don't get work on telly and the older ladies don't get work on telly. If you're good, you'll hang around, won't you?
And if you're enthusiastic, I think you'll hang around because I hear that old ageist thing all the time. And, I think maybe you and I had a conversation about it before. I can only speak as I find. And I went into broadcasting having been given the job, wasn't even contemplating it. So I was very lucky. But then you have to work hard to keep it. And I still really, really love the business and I have an appetite for it. And I think that providing you're prepared to go with it, still do your homework, I think you're right. I think you'll always get jobs. And I'm tapping wood as I speak. I've never had to look for a job, so I do count myself lucky.
You're also one of the few that's able to transcend TV and radio. Most people do that very badly. Which do you prefer?
Well, I think radio is a very, very intimate form of broadcasting. I've analysed it over the years, and I think that in the main, people watch television as a group or with somebody else. I mean, I know sometimes people watch it on their own, but in the main, they're sitting around the telly as a family or, as I say, with your partner. Radio, I think, is very much a one-on-one medium. And I always, when I was doing daily radio for Radio 2, I always had this picture, of somebody on their combine harvester or somebody else driving around the country or maybe a woman at home making the beds or cooking or, it's that one-to-one relationship. So it's very intimate. And also you can weave all those pictures, that old adage about pictures are better on the radio. I mean, we used to have a bit of fun about talking about, well, I'm wearing my slashed satin dress today to fry the eggs or whatever. But you can paint whatever picture you want. So you can have fun with it as well.
And let's talk about Radio 2, because you were there in the halcyon days before it became whopping and big in a different form. It's much more mainstream now, there's more music, and you could say it's less serious. Do you think it's okay, it's gone in the right place?
I think that there's still enough serious programmes on air to tick the box that you like. I think it probably is, well, the figures show that it's headed the right direction. Sometimes the music is a bit too sharp for me. I would like a bit more of, I'm not saying older stuff, but just stuff that I recognise and know. But apart from that, I think Radio 2 is a great station and continues to be and will always be, I think.
I was talking to Brian Connolly just the other day, and one of the greatest, worst bits of telly I saw in a long while was when he was on the Peter Andre show at 5 o'clock. It is very depressing when you've got someone who doesn't know the art of interviewing.
It's true. It's a bit like the old thing about, the ad-libs are best on autocue because they have to be thought out. There is no, for me, when young people say to me about television, there is no doubt in my mind, whatever you're doing, whether you're interviewing or presenting or being interviewed, there is no substitute for the homework. You've got to know the subject before you go on air, particularly live stuff, which I have always done. And the only time that I would ever have felt like truly nervous would have been if a researcher hadn't given me adequate information, or if somebody had pulled out and I, had a substitute guest about whom I knew very little. That unnerves me. But if I know the subject, and then it matches up. And the other thing that I suppose has happened in recent years is that sometimes people think that because you have a celebrity, in inverted commas, that they will be able to interview and present, and that isn't always the case. And there's nothing like, serving your time, growing up through it, learning from good standards. I mean, I've been doing some television recently, and this never would have happened years ago in what you would call the good old days of television. I'm changing in toilets. And the boots of a car. You're actually doing costume changes on the run. And I look at myself and I think, I can't believe that I have my jewellery spread out in somebody's toilet in a shopping centre with all the shoppers around, and I'm changing my jacket and my shoulder pads and my boots and my shoes. And you think, it never would have happened in the days of, the good old days, what I call of TV, where there were proper facilities. So everything has been cut to a minimum because accountants run television these days. It's a bit like hospitals. If the sums don't add up, cut it. So therefore, all those sort of extra things like really good researchers and, as I say, play at least a dressing room to change your clothes in, a lot of that has been cut because things are on the run.
Can you fake it if you don't know anything about anyone? Can you get through 8 minutes?
Who, what, why, where and when will get you through pretty well anything.
Yes.
As taught to me by an old journalist. I remember when I was starting out, bearing in mind that I hadn't planned to do it, he said to me, if you're ever stuck, just think who, what, why, where and when, and how probably would be another good question. But the other thing is, the very first day I went in to do my first interview, it was on the equivalent of the Today programme in Northern Ireland, and it was about a meteorite, about which I knew absolutely nothing. But I was up half the night studying every book that you could think of. I went in with my list of questions and the producer tore it up immediately, at which point I nearly died. And he taught me the best lesson. He said to me, after I recovered from the shock, he said, I don't want you reading those questions. He said, you've got to learn to listen. And that is the key thing for any interviewer, to listen to what the person has said, because you could have 10 brilliant questions, but they would have answered 6 on answer 2.
Yes. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a piece of music and come back with my special guest, Gloria Hunniford, the author of a brand new book called Glorious Grandparenting. And I'm going to come back next. I listen to you and I'm going to ask you who you are and what you're on about.